Welcome to the Blissful Life, a podcast where we awaken the wisdom of self and explore the lessons, the rituals, and the pathways to inner bliss. I'm your host, Regina Lawless, former corporate executive turned author and spiritual teacher. And I'm on a mission, y'all, to help people connect to and express their divine self so they can make their unique impact on the world. If you've been feeling like there is more to life than the hustle and grind, then you found your tribe. It's time to breathe and relax into the blissful life. Welcome back to the Blissful Life. I'm your host, Regina Lawless, and today's guest I'm super excited about. Joining me today is Nitya Shekar. Nitya is a certified professional coactive coach with expertise in adult learning, organizational development, and HR initiatives. So a former HR, but I was going to say actually related to me, a fellow HR baddie. So for 15 years, she served in leadership roles across high growth tech startups, AppNexus, Better, Calibra, to name a few. Big tech, we have Meta in common, which we'll talk about, and finance. She was at Jane Street. So blending her knowledge of people dynamics and complex project management with her strong commitment to business results. She holds a JD from Harvard Law School, a BA in psychology and Spanish from Rice University, and accreditations in a variety of assessment tools, including Hogan, Leadership Circle Profile, Insights, DISC, Myers-Briggs, and Situational Leadership too, which we share that in common, Leadership Circle Profile, DISC. Very respected HR certifications there. So outside of work, Nitya has performed improv with Magnet Theater and concerts with Berkshire Choral International. She enjoys travel, good food, and great TV, our kind of people. And she's game for asking her anything, which I love. In which we're definitely going to get into some of. I'm going to ask her a lot of things in today's interview. Welcome to the show, Nitya.
Thank you so much, Regina. I have been so looking forward to this. I'm really excited about this conversation. I just love the way that you bring people into your world of the blissful life and how different people define that. And I'm excited to explore what that is for me and for us.
Ooh, me too. And forgive the clunky intro. I get so excited sometimes that I just but that's part of the fun. Like halfway through, I was like, should I stop and start over? Because I'm like, this is, getting a little off script, but we're going to keep it in because
it's all good.
Because, that's how we roll. We're going to show it all. So I think it's kind of funny how we met. We both worked at Meta. However, we did not cross paths at Meta.
Yes.
Yeah, which is, I think for some people, it's funny when I tell people I worked at Meta, there's inevitably someone like, oh, do you know so-and-so? And most of the times I'm like, no, unfortunately, like when I worked there, it was like 70,000 people globally. So it's a big place. And even the HR department was a fairly big HR department. So although we both worked in HR around the same time, it was our mutual friend, Ingrid Dahl, that brought us together.
Yes, I'm so glad she did.
Yes.
Hi, Ingrid, if you're watching. I love that she brought us together, and I love when this happens in general. In some ways, it feels like worlds colliding, even though we were a part of the same world in a way. But I think the work that we were doing, although there was some overlap, I think we were kind of touching different populations and going about what we were doing in slightly different ways. But I think what I've so loved about getting to know you is the fact that there is so much of a shared sense of what we're here to do and what we're here to deliver and to bring to people and the kind of life that we want. And that's always great when that happens, even if we didn't get to actually do the day-to-day work. Now we're, each in the, post Meta, post a lot of other things.
Yep.
We're each kind of doing our thing and living our life and living our purpose, which has been so fun. So it's been really fun, I think, yeah, to reflect on those days with you and also to then see what we've done with that.
Yeah, that's why I was so excited to have you as a guest. After we met, I was like, not only are you just such a cool person, and I'm so excited for people to get to hear about your background and your story, but just a genuine light. And so I find I'm gravitating more and more to those people, or they are finding me, and I really do think that's by design, so that I can help share their stories. So I'd love to start and talk a little bit about your background. Prior to starting your own coaching practice, which you lead today, you spent 15 years working in HR across tech and finance. What is something interesting or surprising you learned about people during that experience?
Boy, how much time do we have? No.
Right?
Can we just talk about this for 3 hours? No. So many things, Regina. Well, I'll say one interesting thing that I learned about people i- from that HR perspective of being in a service organization there to help people, yes, but also to enable people to do their job. So coming at it from that lens is that I learned something about what motivates people and sometimes what doesn't motivate people. I think that there are some people who are in it, and by in it, I mean, in their corporate jobs, wherever I was working, they're really in it because they're passionate about the work that they do, or they're passionate about the industry that they're in, or about the people they're helping, or the products they're building, whatever it might be. And then there are other people who are in it because it's less bad than other jobs they were in, and this one pays the
Yes. I
bills.
was going to say, pays the bills. Yeah.
I think that the learning for me is that that's actually okay. We're told that that's not okay, but there's actually absolutely nothing wrong with that. I learned that we need to normalize a little bit more people finding their passion and yes, their bliss in other areas of their life besides the job that happens to be paying their bills right now. I
Ooh.
certainly wouldn't want other people to feel like they're hostage there, that they're unhappy. But I think we put too much pressure on ourselves and also on other people and the people we work with to make work their everything or that particular job their everything.
Oh, wow. That is, I wasn't sure where you were going with that. And it just landed as such a profound reminder, I think, to all of us. For me, I relate to that in that, yes, I think there is a lot of pressure in us to feel like we wake up in the morning and we have this dream job and it's everything we ever wanted. And I remember when I got the job at Instagram, which is of course owned by Meta. I thought that was my dream job, that I was on cloud 9. And it was a fantastic experience, but by the time I got into my last, year or so at Meta, I was like, this is just a job.
Mm.
It's like,
Mhm.
because I had been through so much. By then my husband had passed away, and my eyes were open to, there's so much more to life than getting up every day and going to a job. And even though the people that I worked with were lovely, I do feel like I was doing things that were of meaning, but there was a bigger purpose and a bigger calling that was at that time pulling on my life. And at first I felt guilty as I started to think about what am I meant to do outside of this place, or even just taking my vacation. But that quickly
Yes.
dissipated and I was like, listen, like, I am living my best life outside of this job. And I will show up and do what it is y'all need me to do. I will do the things, I will lead the things, but this isn't my everything. And so I love that you're bringing that point and giving people permission that it's okay if you're drawing a paycheck. We all got to do what we have to do in this capitalist
Indeed.
society, right? I think that's cool. Thank you
Yeah,
for bringing
there's
that.
of course. There's a generational component to this, I think, because to this point of we have to get up every day and find everything at work and be super passionate about it. I'll say millennials, but there's like millennials, plus or minus a few years,
Mhm.
where that I think was deeply ingrained
Ingrained,
into our
yeah.
brains that if we're not doing that, if when we don't see that passion that we've all been told is so important, we label people a certain way, we label ourselves a certain way. That's where that guilt comes from that you alluded to.
Mhm.
That are we not committed enough? Am I not motivated enough? Am I not here for the right reasons? Am I not in it for the long haul? What does this say about me? What does it say about this person? All that stuff comes up. And I love hearing you talk about how you let go of that guilt. And I really want that for other people. I'm not sitting here to say just, phone it in or do a bad job. What I am here to say is joy and passion can come from a lot of places, and as you said,
Mhm.
you found yourself being pulled, and I think a lot of people are pulled but don't really give themselves the permission to be pulled in that way.
That it's that. It's not giving yourself permission. You gave your health permission to leave corporate. And
I
s
sure did.
yeah, right. You took the parachute, you unlocked the golden handcuffs, as they say. 'Cause some of these places, let me tell you, they make it hard to leave 'cause those golden handcuffs are real.
It's
Um,
real.
but I'm curious what led you to start your own coaching practice and what excites you about the work that you do now?
Fundamentally, I think there were two desires that ultimately felt stronger than any kind of fear or anxiety that I was feeling. Because believe me, I was feeling fear and anxiety. It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
leap, it's a
Yes.
risk. And so I
Yes.
won't pretend that those feelings weren't there, but these desires felt stronger. One was a desire for more autonomy. I think that when you are working in corporate, even in the best of situations, and as you talked about with your job at Instagram, my job at Meta and at many other places were actually really great as far as, jobs go. They were fun and exciting and challenging, but even in the best of situations, I felt that I was never really at full autonomy. I think you can never really fully have it when you have a
A
manager.
boss, yeah. Yes.
It's just it's not gonna happen. Again, even with the best of managers. And I wanted that. I wanted to, uh, be my own boss, as they say, and get to drive what I was doing in a way that, yes, put more responsibility on my shoulders, but where I could really feel like it was my voice that I was putting out there, my approach, my style, and not necessarily feel beholden to I think someone else's priorities. And that speaks to the second desire, which was the desire for variety. I think that
Mm.
if you work for an employer full time whose mission, whose priorities align with your own, or they inspire you to get out of bed every day, then you can work with that. But if they don't align with yours, or they don't inspire you, or no longer align with you, no longer inspire you, then after a point it's going to start to feel like you're there making somebody else's dream come true. You're there bringing someone else's vision to life, and you're optimizing for their values rather than your own, or their priorities rather than your own. And after a point that can feel like, I'd like to spread this out a little bit, meaning not just be so beholden to one set of priorities or one culture at one company, but actually be able to say, what can I learn by working with a lot of different kinds of people? A lot of different, I mean, companies, clients, yes, but a lot of different kinds of individuals who are motivated by different things, who are bringing different things to the table. That variety is interesting for me because I don't feel so locked into one way of doing things. It can be
Yeah.
easy to just fall into a set of habits when you work in house at a place, and then because it's a bubble. Every place of employment is a bubble.
Yes.
And now I feel like I'm outside of any bubble and can tap into different ways of working, and I'm getting to learn a lot more, I would say.
Oh, I love that. I definitely relate to the desire for the autonomy and the variety. I think as I'm a solopreneur as well, and I get to choose my own adventure um, each day. And I think it's really cool. There was a nugget in there at the very beginning where you talked about your desire for more, these two things you mentioned, was greater than the fear. And
Yeah,
I get that question a lot. And I'm sure as you're coaching people too, there's this choice between what we know, as comfortable or uncomfortable as it may be, but it's what we know versus the unknown. And that's what I've always shared with people when they ask me what led you to make the leap. It was the desire for that other thing that was calling me was greater than the fear. So I think
absolutely.
beautifully said. With the variety that you get to have now, what excites you about this work? I'm sure you get to work with all different clients. What lights you up about the work you do now?
I am fundamentally a teacher at heart. I have
Mm,
this theory that I talk about with my friends a lot, and I don't know if I can claim credit for this theory. I'm sure somebody has said it before. But my theory is that we are all something specific at heart. No matter what our job is, what we happen to be doing on any given day, what stage of life we're in, just account for all of that, all else being equal. There is a certain role that we all play no matter what situation we're in. So here's the example. I'm sure you can think of people like this as well, but I can think of people who are fundamentally salespeople. Whether or not they work in a sales job, doesn't matter.
yes, yes,
Doesn't matter what their day-to-day job is, even when they're with family, when they're with their loved ones, they're a salesperson. It's just who they are.
yes.
And what I've learned about myself is that I think I'm a teacher at heart, and that's what excites me most about this work is that yes, there's the one-on-one coaching element of it where there's a component of that, but also the other side of it where I get to do workshops and trainings and that type of thing, where I really feel like I can be the educator that I love being. That's the most fun when I
Yeah.
get to see something unlocked in someone else, or somebody is thinking about a certain concept in a way that they weren't before, or where something feels possible before that maybe didn't. Uh, that's the most exciting when I get to see that moment of change. And I know what people
Mhm.
say, you can one training really change everything overnight? And sure, maybe not. I think these are practices that we have to cultivate, right? How to show up
Yes.
as a leader or how to be with other people, how to communicate well. These are lifelong practices, but I do look forward to those moments in the room where somebody has an aha moment or feels like something is accessible when it maybe wasn't before.
And that's the best feeling. So we are kindred spirits in that regard as well. That's what I love to do. I love to impart information, knowledge,
Yes,
wisdom. I know it, I want to share it. So I do agree. We each have this innate gift, or way of being. And I love when I used to do workshops. I love that moment when, like you said, it's that aha, it's that light bulb that you see go off when someone gets it or they feel it. And that's priceless. It's really
it
cool
really
to
is.
see people light up in something, and you having been the conduit to that is really cool. I love it. Okay, so in addition to your resume, which is already impressive in its own right, you also have the audacity to have an impressive academic background. Miss, I went to Harvard Law, also, which is so cool that you have both those backgrounds. And it really, when I was looking through your profile, and I was like, wow. And just even talking to you, I was like, there's such an intellectual rigor there. Just your background suggests that there's an intellectual focus and discipline. Yet when we talked, I was like, oh, you also have this really vibrant creative side. And I learned that you're a classically trained singer. And I was like,
Yes, that's
okay,
right.
what? So I'd love to hear about your singing background.
Surely, happy to. Yes, it's been a wild ride, I'll say, getting here with law school and this career change and all of the creative things. One thing I will say about law, just to put that out there with law
Yeah.
school, as you said, intellectual rigor and discipline and achievement and let's face it, a sense of winning. There's kind of
Yes.
something in the kind of adversarial practice of law that kind of feels like that. And singing and creative things sometimes can feel at odds with that. But I've come to realize in the years since law school that, well, let's just say this, law was made up by people too, just
Yeah.
like you and me.
Right.
Human beings sat down, came up with it, maybe argued about it, definitely argued about it,
Yeah.
wrote it down, and then we all just decided to agree that it was true, you know,
Yeah.
until it was no longer true or it was wrong, and then we changed it and things like that. But in that way, it's as creative as anything else, and so I've kind of had a shift about even the practice of law, in that sense. But yeah, I think that creative outlets are important for everybody to have. I I think that people often call themselves not creative. For example, when I say that I sing or I do these other things, like, oh, I could never, I'm not creative. And I think people do that to themselves either because they think, well, I don't currently work in a creative or artistic profession, and so I'm not creative. Or maybe they never took lessons in any kind of arts or music or painting or whatnot when they were a kid. They maybe didn't have the opportunity. There are a lot of different reasons people, I think, put themselves into that box of not
Yeah.
creative. I happen to think everybody is
I agree.
creative. They just, yeah,
In
they
one
just
way or another. Yeah.
in one way or
Absolutely.
another. Yeah. Whether or not they had the opportunity to express that or explore that in some way is a different matter. But, or, sometimes those things are dismissed or suppressed or laughed at, like, hey, you can't really do that or whatever. But I think it's in everyone. Personally, I started voice lessons when I was a very young child, not because I was particularly interested actually, but well, my mom was particularly interested in me doing it, and so there you have it. And I was trained actually in Eastern classical music, which is called
Oh.
Carnatic music. So
Oh.
its roots are in South India, and it's a very different system from Western classical music. Although now at this point I've been trained in both, but it's a different system. It's really complex. It's interesting. There is much more of an emphasis, I would say, on actually improvisation in the music than there is in Western classical music,
Oh.
which is interesting. So that's another conversation we can have. But um, yeah, it's fun. It's fascinating. I grew up trained in this style of music for 15 years. It had its moments, but it was an intense experience. I think anytime you're doing something like that because there's some pressure to do it or a sense of, in my case, this is your tether to your culture, right? If you let
Uh-huh.
this go, you're betraying your culture, and you want to have a connection to your roots. So there's a lot riding on my musical training. It was intense enough that I grew up, moved away, started law school. I kind of lost touch with it for a while. I stopped because I wasn't finding the joy in it anymore. And it took me some years to actually come back to it and reclaim it in a sense. And I think that many times you have to go back and rewrite the original story of something.
Ooh.
And my story that I was holding on to for so long with music was, this is something I have to do, and how can I say no to it? This is an opportunity that generations before me didn't have. I mean, there's so much that I was
Mm.
carrying along with it, and not to mention the sort of the performance side of it, and you have
Oh
to be
gosh.
good and
Yeah.
all of that. And it, really the thing that had gotten lost was just the doing it for the love of music,
Mm.
and I I find it very interesting when people tell me now that I say I sing and they say, "Oh gosh, I can't sing. I don't sing." What they really mean is, "Well, I'm not Beyonce," and it's
He did, like, who is?
and it's
Like
who is? And I want to say, you don't have to be Beyonce to sing, right? Just like you don't have to be Picasso to paint or whatnot. You can do it just
Absolutely.
because it's fun and you love it, and there's no need for you to be the best at it to do it. It took me a while to learn that and to rewrite that story, but that's my new version of this story is I do this not because I have to, not because I have to perform and be the best at it, but because it's fun and I love it and it's beautiful.
Mm.
So I've since been a part of several choirs. So these days I sing more Western
Ooh.
classical, and that's been really fun singing the old classics like Mozart and Verdi and Duraflé and lots of fun stuff. And
My
I
gosh.
it's been really, really fun, and in my own private time, I still try to practice my South Indian music from time to time, but it's been fun to get that variety, and it just brings me joy, Regina. It's a stress reliever. It's the best.
There's so much richness in that, Nitya. Like, as I'm hearing you, I love the fact that I think so many people can relate to the fact that we are forced into these tracks. Being younger, I remember my late husband, he loved football. So he
Mm.
forced, I mean, I'm going to say that gently, I put
Yeah,
air
yeah,
quotes,
yeah.
but
I know what you mean.
he loved. He loved football, so he enrolled our, then 5-year-old. So he's like 2 seconds out of being a toddler into like Pop Warner football. Like at that point,
Straight
his
into it.
his
Yep.
head was still bigger than his body. Um, and my son did it, but there was this, inherent pressure from his dad and this feeling like, oh, my dad loves this, so I'm doing this for my dad. And then eventually, he had the courage to tell us that he didn't like doing that, and he, ended up
Yeah,
playing rugby or whatever. So that came to mind as
yeah.
how often as young children we do things because it's either someone else's dream or passion. But I love for you how you were able to reclaim it for yourself and find that kernel of joy that maybe you started out, it was probably joyful in the beginning for
Yeah,
you
yeah,
until
yeah.
it became the pressure, the
Yes,
structure, and all the practice and the recitals, I'm sure, and all the things.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
that stuff that just takes away from that initial joy and fun of it, you have to kind of go back to that. And absolutely, I love that example of your son, and you used the word courage. I think courage is absolutely key in these things where we have to be able to say, this isn't for me once you realize it's not for you. That's as true
Mhm.
for a hobby, a creative outlet like this, as it is for work, anything. To be able to look at it and say,
Mhm.
this is actually no longer serving me, or this actually isn't joyful anymore, or at least I'm not doing it for the reasons that originally brought me to it. And that does take courage because it gets kind of trained out of us once you enter the working world, right? To have conversations like that, I would say.
Yeah, and there's something too that you touched on, the voluntary nature. There's something that is coming up for me around when you do something for the joy of it, it usually is voluntary. I'm thinking about things in my life that I am forced to do that usually sucks the joy right out. Like the
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
And one thing that I've reclaimed recently is cooking. So
Oh,
I'm the oldest of 3, and so I used to like, my mom would have me start dinner and things like that as a teenager. I was not interested because I was like, "What? Busy talking on the phone. Like, what else am I supposed to be doing?"
yeah, exactly.
Or dancing or listening to music, like, those were my things. And then as I, started to have a family, working mom, I felt forced. I felt like that was a role as a mother, as a wife. I'm
Mm,
supposed to cook dinner, and it just became a thing, and I hated doing it. It felt like I was forced to have to fit this in amongst the laundry list of other things I have to do. But now that I'm free from those constraints, I really enjoy it. Like, I am really enjoying getting back in the kitchen and being creative, and that's become a
yeah,
form of creative expression. But it's the
that's beautiful.
voluntary. Thank you. I think you helped to make sense of it for me. Me being able to do it voluntarily now, as opposed to feeling forced to do it, brings the joy.
Yes, I heard somebody say the other day of what if you could turn the I have to do this into and I get to do this. Look what I get to do.
Yes. Yes.
And I realize that's harder for some tasks than others and they're, different situations are different. It's complex, but whenever possible, right? Look what I get to do and look what I get to create with this. To your point, it is. I
Mhm.
mean, cooking is an art. It
It
is
is.
creative.
It's very creative. Yes. Yes. Speaking of creative expression, because we've been talking about that, you also, and you alluded to this in your previous response, that you also do improv, which
Yes.
I'm like, okay, again, this lady can't surprise me anymore. Like, so how did improv, like, where did that come from?
Oh boy, this is a fun one. Improv wasn't natural to me, even though in some ways I've been performing, I suppose, in one way or another my whole life, whether it's the music or dance and other things. Improv wasn't natural to me because, as many people do, I associated it with actors and comedians, and
Mm-hmm.
that was just a stepping stone to that type of career. I never had that desire to be an actor, be a comedian in any way. I continue to not have any desire. Yeah. I was actually a few years into this learning and leadership development career when I had actually a colleague who is a dear friend now, named Sarah, and she recommended I take an improv class. She's the brilliant improviser and just wonderful. And she thought I might enjoy it. She thought it might even help my work as a facilitator, the work that I do in front of rooms, the teaching and training, leading workshops, and things like that. And I said, well, yeah, sure. What the hell? And so I gave it a try, ended up really liking it. I to classes with Magnet Theater, as you said up top.
Oh.
And I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed my teachers. I enjoyed the shows I was in. I always knew at some level there was going to be a ceiling in a similar way to music in some ways, meaning if you're going to advance beyond a certain point and make it in the big leagues, as it were, your level of talent really does have to be extraordinary. It's highly competitive, these things. A
Oh,
lot
I
of people really
bet.
are. Yeah, people are trying to get on SNL and do various other things. And for me, that wasn't ever the goal. And I was just having fun with it. So I eventually just became more interested in integrating into my life and my mindset and my career
Mm.
too, rather than pursuing it professionally, and becoming a comedian and such. So I do use it just in other ways now. And I feel like it's been transformative. I really am so glad that I was introduced to it. And I absolutely now fall into that camp of saying everybody should take an improv class, and I'm very kind of evangelical about it.
I was gonna improvist or improvis. I don't know what the term is.
Uh,
Improvisers. I don't.
improviser is
Okay,
perfect. Yeah,
improvisers and meditators. I count myself as a meditator. Like try to evangelize everyone. Like I don't.
I think so. That's right.
But there is that thing about transformation. So how has it helped your life and career, and are there any lessons that you've learned that you think could benefit other people?
I do think so. There's a common misconception out there, I think, that you have to be funny in order to do improv.
Yeah.
And it's kind of similar to when we're having the conversation about music or painting or any kind of thing where if you have to be X in order to do this. And it's a misconception. You actually don't have to be funny in order to do improv at all. What you have to do and be is be really present. You have to be very focused
Mhm.
and patient. You have to be a really, really good listener. You have to be adaptable and flexible. And you have to be comfortable with a good amount of risk taking and just trying stuff as well. So that those are really the skills. I might have missed a few, but I would say
No,
those
no.
are the core skills as opposed to, being funny. And I bring this up because all of those things are learnable, trainable. Some people are just funny and, that's just how it is. They're maybe born that way. But things like how to be a better listener, can you be more flexible? How can you take more risks? How can you just be more present with other people? You can learn these things. And I think improv did teach me those things. It taught me about what's actually important when working in groups, for one thing. Going back to that example of the funny can actually get in the way of good improv. If you're
Mm,
trying
I could see that.
too hard. Yeah, there's always that person who is used to being the funniest person in the room, or maybe people have told them they're funny. And so then they're trying too hard to get in that zinger, I got to
Right.
get that laugh from the audience. And, I think if you're doing that, you've lost the plot actually, because now you've made it about you
Yeah.
rather than about, hey, we're all in this thing together. We're standing on a stage together. Improv is a team sport, unlike
Mm.
stand-up comedy or other things. Everybody's contributing to a whole. That's the whole point of it. And you've lost the plot if you're trying to make it about you and be funny. So that's been a great learning for me in the sense that how to actually work in groups. It's helped me lean on other people a little bit more, trust other people. It brings up the power of co-creating. It doesn't have to all be on our shoulders to come up with the answer. There's wisdom in groups. And well, to be fair, there's also groupthink in
I was
groups
gonna
and
say
things
there's
that
also
are not so
some
great.
dumbass ideas in groups too, but,
Absolutely.
you know.
There is stupidity, there is misinformation, there is a lot of stuff, to be fair. But but there's also a lot of, I think,
Mm,
untapped wisdom that you
a
can lean
lot.
on. And you might, it's one of those questions, right, to ask yourself, like, what am I missing out on if I'm not leaning on the group here? I think improv has also just helped me relax a little bit more. It's funny, if you asked my partner, my wonderful partner, or any of my friends, I don't know if they would call me relaxed, Regina. I'm not sure if that's a word they would use. I think jury's still out on whether I can call myself relaxed, but but I'm believe it or not, calmer than I was, and I think it's because improv teaches you when you're with this group doing a scene, trying to create something off of an idea, the stakes are pretty low, right? The worst that can happen is, it wasn't that great and nobody
Yeah.
laughed, or it wasn't that compelling of a scene or something like that, right? The stakes are low, and it helped me understand that although of course there are situations in life when the stakes are genuinely high, in most, let's call it, corporate work contexts, the stakes actually aren't as high as people would have you believe, you know?
Yeah, I just to pipe in he I always use that
Please.
example with corporate, especially, like, working for a social media company, and you know the intensity of places like Meta, not to just call them out because all of these big corporations are like this, but I would be thinking we'd be in these intense meetings, I'd be like, "We're basically just enabling people to watch cat videos, like, and make memes." Like, "What? This is not that serious. Are we even serious right now being this serious?"
Right,
So,
right,
continue. It's
right. No, I'm right there with you. I have had a manager literally tell me, this was in a startup that I worked at years ago. She said, there are situations in which people are actually saving lives, and we're not saving lives here. Let's keep that in mind.
absolutely not.
Yeah. and, and we have to remember that. I think improv really helped me see that, as high as the stakes might seem, they're actually probably not that high. You'll probably figure something out. You'll keep moving forward. You can
Yeah.
relax into it and trust your intuition, the intuition of people around you, whatever it is. You
Mm.
can you can trust that, okay, we're going to come up with a reasonable enough solution and it's going to be fine. Is it going to be perfect? Who knows? But we're going to be fine. And that ease is something that definitely has come from improv for me.
Oh, and such so definitely relatable to teams, and I could see how people who learn the skills of improv would be better team members and even team leaders. But hearing you
Yeah.
describe all the ways that it's helped you, it's also such a great metaphor for life.
Yes.
Like, especially that piece around relaxing into it and trusting that at the end of the day, like, all is well, that
Yes.
just kind of trust that it'll come to you, whether it be in the moment or it'll come to you through someone else
That's
facilitating
right.
it. Very, very cool. And I never thought of improv in that way. So I feel like
Yeah.
you evangelized me without
Is it working?
it worked.
It's
Like,
working.
I'm a convert. Like, where do I go to
Love
take
it.
improv? So,
Yeah, I'll tell you. Yeah, you're right. There is a sense of just, hey, what if we just trusted ourselves and other people a little more? That can be hard to
mm,
do, especially in environments we find ourselves in these days where I think trust can be hard to come by, but
yeah.
I think we can all do with a little bit of that, as you said, and also with a little bit more silliness. Let's not
Oh
forget,
my
improv is
gosh.
is about play. It's about silliness, and yeah, I don't think we laugh at ourselves enough.
Yeah, we need that. And I feel like like so many of us, the last 5 years, like, and not even counting whatever childhood trauma you came into this world with,
Mhm.
just the last 5 years from the pandemic onward have been
Yes.
really, really hard for people. I know for me, the pandemic, and then I talk a lot about the death of my husband because that
Yes.
really was a seminal moment for me and my awakening and the pivoting of my life's journey and life's work. But one of the lessons that came out of that is not to take life so seriously.
Mm.
Also, this like finding ease and finding a way, to your point, with through improv, just to relax. And I do think that that's the point. I do feel like even though we go through a lot of ups and downs in life, if we can find the joy, the silliness, the laughter, the play, it really does help us cope with the heavier times.
That's right, and you're a testament to this. I mean, you have, first of all, such an easy and beautiful laugh, and you're
Thank you.
open, and you're giving with your laughter, and here's what I'll say. I think that that's a choice that we have to, at some point, make. I'm not going to sit here and say that everything in life is a choice. No, things happen to us and things happen at us. That's true. And also, what I see in you is there is a lightness that you have dug deep into yourself and found. And I think that there's a lesson in that for people who I think feel like, coming back to permission, who feel like they either don't deserve it or that in some way it's wrong or disrespectful or unprofessional to have that lightness or fun or silliness. That, like, oh no, if I'm not still where I was those years ago, that that's wrong. That I'm not
Yeah.
allowed to do these things. And I just look at you and I'm really struck by that, about how
Aw.
you have dug deep and found that.
Thank you. I fully receive that, because I don't think people understand that e there is a choice. There's a part of my book where I write about this. When you're in the depths of the pain and the despair and just at your lowest point, at least for me, there was a point where I was like, I am tired of feeling this way. I am tired
Yeah.
of carrying all of this.
Yeah.
And it very much felt like a choice within my control to, do I want to sit in this, or
Hmm.
do I want to climb out of this? And that's the second thing that you said, that it is a journey. I certainly did not arrive at this lightness without going through the fire,
Yes.
without going through
Yes.
the fire first.
Yes.
But I'm grateful. I'm so grateful to be on the other
Yeah.
side. And I feel very blessed to be able to share the lightness that I have in my spirit now. Cause I do think it
Yes.
gives other people permission. Like, it's like, chill out. Like, it's like, at the end of the
Absolutely.
day, really, I promise you, it's not as serious as we all make it to be. And I think if we could all, both literally and, metaphorically lighten up, things would be easier for all of us.
That's right. And we can model it for others, just as you're doing every day. I think we can spread that more if we model it ourselves. I agree.
Ah, good stuff. So, despite your success, or in spite of maybe yours, I don't know. Um, when we first met, you were sharing with me that you haven't always had it easy, and this, is a perfect segue into this question
Yeah.
based on what we were just talking about. That, similar to me, you've overcome challenges in your life and in your childhood. What has helped you move forward in life and maintain the joy? And because I certainly
Yeah.
see it in you. There's still a light in your eyes. There's still fire in your belly. What has helped you move forward in that?
Yeah, I love this, and I agree. It's a perfect segue from what we were talking about, because I think that when you grow up in a situation that is not safe and dysfunctional, and there's a lot happening, you end up with a sense of self that's really distorted.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that anyone who's seen quotes on Instagram or videos on TikTok or whatever, right? You have to reparent yourself. That's what everybody says, right? Reparent
Yes.
yourself. But it's true. I think that when your foundation wasn't strong as an adult, now you have to build it, right? You have to reconstitute. And it's not easy. And more than that, it can sometimes, I think, leave you with a feeling of, why me? Why do I have to do all this work?
Right.
What? Listen, the people who really needed therapy didn't go. They'll probably never go. Why do I have
It's
to
that.
do it?
It's like they will never go.
Right. But here I am spending all the money on therapy and whatnot. It's not fair. Why, And I've certainly been there. But so it's not easy, but I think I remember something that a actually one of my therapists told me that I've really held on to. She said, at some point you have to stop fighting with your past. And I'm reminded of what you said just a minute
Mm,
ago, Regina, around like I'm tired of carrying this. And I think I too realized that yeah, I mean I've been putting in so much effort fighting with my past and carrying
mm,
things that I just why am I tired all the time? Gee, I wonder why I'm tired all the time. And I think we do reach a point where we just don't want to be tired anymore.
yeah.
That was my experience. And look, it's a daily thing for me. I wouldn't say that I'm totally on the other side of things. I think I'm working on it every day, but I would say that the joy and the lightness for me comes from actually a return to my own sense of who I really am as a person.
Mm,
People often talk about if you want to know who you really are, look at who you were when you were a child. And for me, that it's a bit difficult just because of the situation that was there. I didn't, necessarily have that the kind of full free playful child childlike existence that I think I would have liked to have. And so I thought, well, now's my chance. I get to be that child now.
yes.
So if you didn't have that full opportunity for whatever reason
Yeah.
before, that opportunity isn't gone. I think that you can spend time wondering why you didn't have that or why things were a certain way, and that's okay. You're allowed to do that too, for sure. And I still do sometimes. But now I think, well, gee, who says I can't be more of my childlike self now? They talk about the importance of play, right? And silliness when we were
Mhm.
talking about improv earlier. It's literally good for your brain. And I thought, I've done so much work on myself and it's felt like work. Why not just bring more of the inner child that I know is in me into
Yes.
my work now and laugh and so that's been a process of me saying let's invite little Nitya along for the ride here and see what she has to say and that's been fun and of course I think I've been really really lucky I would say with just having a really great group of friends and I bring this up because in particular for those of us who have worked in corporate environments in let's call it high achieving environments and have kind of built this life for us that sometimes does feel like it's all about achievement
Mhm.
the importance of friends and I'll say especially for women leaders
Yes.
this matters greatly to have this core group of people that you really love and really trust and who know you deeply outside of your work day outside of any particular context but just know you as a human
Mm,
that's brought joy to my life too I've just been lucky to meet some of the best people who carry me when I'm low and who are there for me when I'm down and I only now, at this stage in my life, realize just how valuable that is. I think I probably took
mm.
it for granted many years ago. I mean, I've always loved my friends, but they're all friends. They're friends. I hang out with them. It's
Right.
great. And now I'm like, no, these people really, really matter. And I respect them so much. I
Yeah.
trust them and I want them around me for my life, and I I know how fortunate I am to have that, and so I hope that I'm being much more intentional about my friendships now than I was before. Well, you can ask them; they'll tell you, but I'm trying.
It sounds like it. It sounds, like you are being intentional, and I can definitely relate to, just I love everything that you just said. With the friends piece, I do think as we get older, it can come full circle, especially if you like, for me, I got married young, I had my son young,
Mhm.
and I was focused on climbing the ladder, and yes, I had acquaintances at work, and I certainly had work friends, but now I do find myself really appreciating when my husband died, my friends from high school came back into my life in a stronger way.
Yeah.
And which was beautiful because they reminded me of who I was before I took on a lot of the
Mm,
responsibilities and the titles and the things. And so that relates to kind of what you talked about, finding your inner child. Like
yes.
my girlfriends and some of them I've known since middle school, they brought me back to life in those early weeks and months after my husband died. And helped me remember that I used to be full of so much light and so fun, and I used to dance, and we spent hours just talking about who we were in those days, and it was such a powerful realization for me and a remembering of I'm still that girl. And my friends, those who have grown up with me, call me Gina, and
Mm,
so I'm still Gina. Um,
yes, you are.
yeah, and I think that that's the key. If each of us, like you've reclaimed little Nitya, like I've
Yes,
reclaimed little Gina.
yes,
If
yes,
each of
yes.
us can go back and reclaim that brilliant inner child, that is where that lightness and playfulness and fun and just even deep
Yeah,
wisdom. Like I feel like as kids are so wise if we allow
they
them to be.
really are.
If we allow them to be.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. So wise and so curious and so often
Mhm.
in tune with their emotions
Very
as well.
perceptive. Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. Especially
Absolutely.
this new generation of children. They
Hmm.
very much are forcing us to come to grips with all the ways that we've separated and labeled each other and all these structures. And
Yes.
they bring such a deep empathy. And I think it's beautiful, beautiful to see.
Yes. 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 You're still that girl. I'm still that girl. And
Yes.
all of you listening, you're still that child.
You're
Yeah.
still that child, and if you have not, like, go back and reacquaint yourself
Yes.
with that child, because that's where the goodness is, and you can still do your responsibilities. Like, I think that's why some people don't want to lean into the play because they feel like, "Well, I have a mortgage, and I have kids to
Hmm.
raise," and, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, all those things will still be there, right?
They'll still be there. Exactly.
But you can handle your responsibilities with more joy and lightness, and it just yeah, it'll enable you to do those things and make them not so burdensome.
Right. Right.
Ah, this was amazing. I am so glad you made time to come and sit with me and visit with us. For those who are watching or listening, how can people find and stay connected with you?
Regina, thank you so much for this. This was so lovely. I loved just being here with you and with everyone who will listen. Thank you so much. How can people find me? Well, gee, I'm that strange being who's not on most of the social medias,
Good for you.
but I. But I truly, I truly welcome any of your listeners to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's where I'm actually the most active, talking about my life and my work. Nitya Shekar on LinkedIn. I'm totally open and public there. I love connecting with people on there. And also, if people are interested in my work or how I think about my coaching and just want to learn more about that, my website is secondwindgroup.co. My company is called Second Wind Group,
Ah,
mainly because I think that you can always find your second wind wherever you are in your life.
ah.
There's one more push left in all of us, and so that's why I called it a second wind group. So if you Google that or secondgroup.co, you can read about me and my work, and you can even send me a message through there if you'd like.
Oh, I love it. So appropriately named. Like getting to know you and hearing your story, so appropriately named. Love it. I am sure people will find and connect with you, especially folks who are in need of a second wind. I hope that they reach out to you and learn through you and through your example. So thank you so much for joining the Blissful Life.
Thank you so much, Regina.
Thanks, Nitya. Take care. Bye.